Welcome to our joint venture of the Awakening Podcast versus Mindwars. I'm Roy Collin and I'm on the Awakening Podcast.org. We're also on BitTube and YouTube. And so is Chris Ryan. You'll find him on mindwars.uk, but I don't know, will you find him on YouTube? We had a, a funny issue this week, Chris. My YouTube stayed up, but the same video on yours didn't. What happened?
Yeah, bit of a funny instance that way, but no surprise with YouTube with me because I think that's about the third video or more they've actually banned in the past couple of months. So it's interesting. We had obviously like for like videos, but for some reason yours got left up and mine got taken down after I think it was only up about 6-7 hours, and they took down the video. And they said that their reason was it violated their community guidelines, which is, what can that be? It's so elaborate as to what it can be. I've obviously applied or in the last couple of days to see what the story was, and I didn't hold back in what I said to them on it as to, give me some points or factual evidence on what was said was wrong or where the community guidelines were actually broken on it. So hopefully we'll hear back by the weekend as to what it is. But currently I'm banned from posting anything on YouTube or anything got to do with my channel at the moment. So this episode won't be up on YouTube at the moment anyway. Until we see what the story is with YouTube. But they're no loss because when you get banned on YouTube, because you nearly wear it as a badge of honor because it's you're poking the bear, you're doing something right. So I don't see anything, and I know we didn't see it, and that was not truthful or factual, or if you're not allowed to give your own opinion on top of that, then we're in a bad society.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes people are thinking that YouTube is in the best interest of humanity, but yet there's a lot of sick stuff up on YouTube, so it ain't true. The stuff they're taking down, from my experience, is the truth, and if they're hiding that, they're scared of what you're putting out there. But the beauty is they'll find you on BitChute anyway, so at least that's not being censored.
No, always a plus for now anyway. Yeah,
Exactly.
But,
so we have a bit of an update from last week's Sage, because we were discussing that last week, and there's a bit of an update on that one, yeah.
Yeah, there is, because it seemed to get a lot of people's attention, and dot connecting with Sage and all that that's going on. That got quite a few people were asking about it afterwards. As far as Sage goes and stuff like that, if you were to look at the top 20 key influencers that are in Sage itself, the Science Advisory Government Emergency Group here in England, that are, as Boris says, we're guided by the science, guided by Sage, and the rest of them that are all owned by Bill Gates. But we spoke about Jeremy Farrar and stuff like that last week. If people haven't checked it out, check out the episode as well, because I'm not going to repeat all what was in the episode, but just continuing on from it itself, is the fact that, if you look at the top 20 key influencers that were actually in that, 11 of those already work for the government out of the 20 of them that are involved. And you're talking at least 12 of them, and I don't think that includes Chief Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance as well. So you're talking, they got about 14 people out of 20. They've either A, work for a vaccine company, or A, have investment in a vaccine company itself. So these people obviously want some sort of a ROI, or return on investment, and do not want these lockdowns to obviously end anytime soon, because they're all vested interests into what they are itself. So it's quite interesting. Even if you look on the actual the 20 people itself, there's not actually one immunologist out of the top 20 key influencers from Sage itself. There's actually a very good article from a girl called Dr. Zoe Hardcombe. I can leave in the description below. And she goes through it well. She elaborates more of the stuff that she didn't speak about the stuff I spoke about last week, but she goes into other details of it on it. And it's quite interesting for people to actually read through it. And what she was actually saying is that there's actually, in the Sage group itself, there's actually 4 times the amount of modelers and experts in behavioral manipulation than there are virologists, and there's no immunologists in the whole team itself. So why you've even got behavioral type people on the Sage group itself, behavioral, insights team as well, which is in the Westminster, Whitehall area as well, that they're basically coercing the British public, manipulating what way to basically influence them, and what way it's behavioral kind of mechanisms they're trying to use to enforce on the English population. This is what the group they are. I mean, and of course we know Professor Neil Ferguson, the guy who we briefly spoke about, is notorious in getting all these models wrong time and time again for year after year after year, and was the cause of all this ludicrous projection modeling that he done, and sent everybody into lockdown, of course. And he stepped down from the Sage group. He was involved in them as well. And he stepped down in May for breaking his own coronavirus lockdown rules itself. But the interesting part about Ferguson is he's already involved in a group called Nerve Tag. NERVTAG actually stands for the New and Emergency Respiratory Virus Threats Advisory Group. And the interesting part actually is that a lot of the people that are on the SAGE committee are also on NERVTAG with Ferguson as well. So they're all, you can see where all the dots are connecting. They're all aligned, and they're all, you know, most of these people are all funded and massively owned by Gates again. So it's just a bit more dot connecting in for this week as to where that thing is. But description below, I'll leave for people to look at, and they can go through the article in a longer description of what I'm actually talking about as well. But it's quite fascinating to see that's there, and what's going on with the British public inside.
It's amazing. It's actually so blatant, and like the reality is, I mean, we see it, you know, the amount of businesses that are closing. I mean, how many people have let go? If they're in the restaurant business, the hotel industry, loads of different companies are let go. I know just from statistics in Ireland, I don't know the rest of the world, but even suicide rate is up, depression is up. And this is all orchestrated by people that are playing games with their lives. And it's amazing that it's so blatant. Like, you just see the different companies and see what they're doing, and they get away with it. And when they're caught, they just move from one place to the next.
Exactly. I mean, this is the part again with dot connecting, is all these kind of bodies or organizations or agencies and groups, they're all kind of acting like they're acting independently. But when you actually strip back a couple of layers, you'll actually see that they're all connected with each other and embedded each other, and they all have vested interest in these kind of groups, and it leads back to the same few people time and time again throughout the whole system. I mean, Ferguson, like, you know, talk about his models. I mean, go back about 15 years ago, and he talked about he expected through his projections to be about an estimated 150 million people would die with that bird flu that was going around back then. Well, if you looked at between 2003 and 2009, there was a grand total of approximately 282 people died, not 150 million. That's a long way out.
He was slightly off there.
Just a slight bit off in that direction. Yeah.
Amazing. He kept his job, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. These people seem to get all these jobs again. But it's run by corruption. You're going to have corruption people working for you. So, I mean, yeah, they'll all line each other's pockets at the end of the day, and not in the interest of the British people or the British public and the other people at large. Yeah.
And, you know, like you're on about the statistics and everything, I just put up on the Awakening Facebook page the other day that there was a senator grilling Mark Zuckerberg again of fascist book, and, you know, just asking him, like, are you colluding, are you using, you know, especially because we can see it with Biden that they're actually telling you that he wins, and he was like, I'll get back to you. He was being asked questions, can you confirm that you're doing this, yes or no, and he would not answer it. So, like, when you see people, unfortunately, we're all using Facebook to get our message out there. And when you see that the so-called owner, I mean, behind it, I mean, I know that the Rothschilds are actually at one point, there was a VP that was there. I think it was Nathan Rothschild was actually on the board. I'm not sure if he's still there, but you can tell the bad boys have been controlling that from the start. But the problem is, when they won't even, under the Senate, they won't even confirm what they're doing and denying it. You know, it just shows that we seriously need to move away from the Facebook and the YouTube, or else bringing the right people behind it. You know, instead of creating, because I know there's the MeWe, there's a lot of different, I think Parler is a kind of a Twitter alternative. There's a lot of things.
There's Gab, there's a few others,
they ain't as good, unfortunately. And the problem is, now there's probably 100 different things. So you have little speckles of people in different groups, and they tend to be the same type of group. So you're talking to the converted. Whereas the way Facebook used to work is that, you know, you could just talk and create a group, create an event, or even a poll. I don't even think you can do polls anymore. You know, I've been trying to do that, and I know you can do it in a chat, but not in actual on your page. So we need to make change there. You know, it's a pity we can't get the good boys to take over the Facebook.
Of course, yeah, that'll be easier said than done, because Silicon Valley and the World Health Organization, they're all, you know, they're guiding all this, you know, so-called pandemic that's going on around the world. So it's very, very hard. They're in control of all the information, which is unfortunate, because most people go to their social media now for information, and the information that, you know, Silicon Valley is pumping out is just blatantly not in the interest of the public. But they're also treating people like kids, like they're almost these parents of ours, something like that, and these evil type parents that they're basically saying that what you should listen to, what you should watch, what you should read, and what you shouldn't read, we think this is what you need to see and what you don't need to see. I mean, it's insanity. You need to give people choice. You can't ring fence this kind of stuff. And they're not going to stop, unfortunately, anytime soon, because they know it's winning so many people over. Lots of people are tuned into and they think what they're saying is the actual gospel truth. And then, of course, by their perception information received, that's making their life and their family and the rest of their belongings basically take a direction in life that can often be a direction for the worse. So and there, of course, we know the so-called independent fact checkers are not independent, as me and you very well know. I mean, Gates, loads of them have pumped millions and millions into this as well. So it's amazing. You could put something up on Facebook or something like that, and within seconds at times, it can just be not false, fake, independently fact checked. Yeah. So I'd like to see somebody should be independently fact checking the fact checkers, because
well, no, exactly. I mean, I have seen loads of situations where I know the information was true, 100% was true, and the fact checkers are coming up, and like I would like to see them going to court and being totally liable for what they're actually doing, you know, because like the journal.ie in Ireland, they're constantly lying about it, and they're the fact checkers, and you know it's not true. And you mentioned Silicon Valley there actually earlier. I'm not an Elon Musk fan. In fact, I used to like him, and then when I saw him putting up all these satellites to 5G, I just totally turned against him. But he kind of even came out during the week. I don't know, did you see that? Where he got 4 tests done, 2 were positive and 2 were negative. So now he's even against the testing. So I was shocked to see that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, definitely not a fan of Elon Musk myself. He's an absolute psychopath for what he's actually doing to the world. It's insanity. And of course, he's like one of the other few people, the bad boys again, of course, that he's when small business have lost everything they've owned for decades and decades, his billions are just going to the roof at the moment for what he's doing. So he's climbing the ladder in billions while everybody else is losing overnight. Can't even open their business doors or put food on the table for a lot of people. And he's gaining momentum through absolute, but it's all connected to artificial intelligence, the 5G, the smart grid systems that they want to put out in the future that they're unraveling guided through the United Nations Agenda 21 and so on, all that kind of stuff. So I can see why they are actually doing it, but he makes himself out to be, to a lot of people, that he's kind of a good guy kind of. But it's interesting what you're saying. I've seen that clip all right during the week, that, you know, 4 tests from the very same person, the very same area in that day and all, and 2 turned positive and 2 turned negative. So even Elon Musk came out and said something isn't right here. This is a bit of a scam.
Yeah,
and he got ridiculed massively over it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard of a case of people were queuing up in the cars in the States to get a test, but there was such a queue, they went home and they got the results. They didn't even do the test and they got the positive results. So, yeah.
That I've heard that time and time again. You know, it's madness to what they're doing. But even if you look at here in England and elsewhere, like, you know, the definition of a coronavirus death, anybody who's tested positive within the last 28 days. So you get tested today, and tomorrow, the day after, you get rolled over by a bus. Like, obviously you die from being rolled over by a bus, but they're going to put down, well, he was in the 28 day mark, so we need to put him down as another case as well. Another, you know, on the statistic.
They're making sure they're getting their kickbacks. You know, it's all about the money.
Exactly, it's the money trail again. That's all about at the end of the day. As I said, it's definitely not about health anyway. And if people aren't awake at this stage, I don't know what to say, because it's so obvious now at this stage.
Yeah. There's another one actually, because I was just checking my notes there, because we both seen the video on what's in these vaccines. So that's an interesting one.
It is. I mean, there's a video I'll put up for people who are listening to the podcast to it, but it's only a couple of minutes long, the video, but a girl actually goes through the AstraZeneca vaccine and basically shows in all the paper, the description box itself, the whole lot. And when you go into the actual words, because the words control a lot of people off, but you actually go in to actually find out what these actual words mean. I mean, one of them in particular was 14-week-old Caucasian male fetus. Apparently it was a lung tissue or something that they took out. So that's actually being used inside in that, and they're not hiding it. You can actually go look at the description and stuff. It's on the box itself that it's actually there. So it's interesting that they're coming out with this kind of stuff, and if people actually were aware of what they were actually injecting. I mean, there's so many disgusting stuff that's going to be in these vaccines, but that's one that's very obvious. Anybody can go search for themselves and check out. It's there. Like, it's amazing the stuff that they're putting into these vaccines, leaving people's, you know, vaccine alone instead, or they like it or agree with it or don't disagree with it. I mean, would you actually take something with this kind of a 14-week-old aborted fetus basically inside it? I won't be taking it anyhow.
No, I mean, like, it's something that I'm hoping we can find a loophole on it, that, you know, for say religious grounds or something, that, you're not taking this, whatever religion you are, whether you are religious or not, that you can basically state, yeah, no, whether it's a Jehovah Witness or whatever, and say that I refuse to allow that into my body because it's against my religion. Maybe there's kind of loopholes there that we can actually,
There is. I know a lot of people online. They're talking from Christian groups. They've come forward and they said there's no way that they're actually will have anything got to do with this, and they're putting up petitions. They seem to be going further about it. So that's only unraveling the last couple of days. So we'll see how that actually materializes out. But of course, people are trying to take down this video. They're trying to censor it on Facebook. Trying anywhere you go, they're trying to hide it straight away. But you're literally taking. It's not anybody's opinion. They're literally taking the evidence off the box itself that they're giving to you. So I mean, how much more blatant, obvious truth do you want in front of you? Yet they're trying to censor it and deny it.
This is the packaging of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Okay? Right in front of you. I want you to look at this, okay? I want you to look at it. It lists ingredients, blah, blah. I'm not interested in that right now. I want you to home in on this here. This is the COVID-19 vaccine. Claire's just going to pull this up for you. This number, okay, it's called CHAD, whatever that is, 0 or whatever it is, times 1. Okay, this is the CHAD 0 times 1, the COVID-19 vaccine. So Claire, go to the next one. Just wait 1 second, guys. Okay, so then you're going to go to researchsquare.com. It's really important, people. The reason we're doing these videos is because I want you to learn to do your own research. Don't rely on us or anybody else. Do it yourself. So we look up this CHAD 0 times 1 COVID-19. And the first thing, before we go to what I bring there, is I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh, what's recombinant? What does that even mean? So I asked the new and I asked them, everyone's like, gosh, don't know. So this is what you need to do. You need to Google every single word on here. Don't skip by it thinking, oh, that's science, don't understand. So Claire, let's look up this word on Wikipedia, and straight away, there you see it. Recombinant, it's DNA. Our DNA molecules formed by laboratory methods of genetic recombination, such as molecular cloning, to bring together genetic material from multiple sources, creating sequences that would not otherwise be found in the genome. Okay, you do that research yourself. But my point is, again, it's right in front of your face that this stuff is in this vaccine. So they can call us crazies and terrible hosts that spread terrible fear-mongering things. They're putting it right in front of your face. Okay, go back to that thing again. So what we're asking you to do is do your own research. Okay, we've started it off for you. So back to this number. That means that AstraZeneca package I just showed you, this is their vaccine. And as they go down, again, we use direct RNA sequencing to analyze transcript expression from the CHAD, let's call it the CHAD vaccine, genome in human MRC5. So you think to yourself, oh, let's skip past that, a little bit complicated, must be a bit scientific. No, look it up. And what do we find, Claire, when we look that up? MRC5 is originally developed from research deriving lung tissue of a 14-week-old aborted Caucasian male fetus. There you have it, peeps. This COVID-19 vaccine that everybody is saying is going to save the world has a truckload of shit in it, but one thing it definitely has is the lung tissue of a 14-week-old aborted Caucasian male fetus.
And when you look at the ingredients of the aborted fetuses, that like Australia and America, I think they can abort 1 hour prior to the child being born, that's murder. But like, the reason they're probably doing that is they're filling up their ingredients, which is sick. You know, how they can actually vote into that. And I've seen videos where you see them in the parliament in Australia and they jump in for joy because they got this voted in.
No.
Like, that just shows the evil and sickness that is running each country. And like, we both know that it's not the parliament, that there's a higher level above the whole lot pulling the strings. But yet, when you see people like that voting in something, I think that it's a case of you need to, like, we see with the, like, Denmark, and we see like with Berlin, they basically, they've hosed them, they've injured a lot of people, and it was a peaceful protest. But I personally believe that instead of trying to go to Parliament where they just line up their military, because they're no longer police, they're like military, is go to the actual individuals' homes, because a lot of them are actually, they know where they live, and get your pots and pans and start banging them outside of their houses and attack them as individuals and get them, shun them, because and I see it in Ireland and all over the world. I mean, it's not one country in particular. It's kind of common knowledge now that every single one of them, and I think it's intentional. It's intentional that there's Muppets running every single government, because there's no way. And like we've seen the corruption of the government fraud that's happened in the elections in the US. And I've seen some videos of in Asia where a guy had actually the signature with the pens they were given, and he got a lighter, and you could see the signature, it disappearing. Like, I wondered lots of times, just probably like yourself, how did the Irish government get in when they had created so much homelessness and so much problems? I was like, how are people still voting from? And now I go, they're probably, because they're all run by the same evil cabal. They're probably all doing it. And people just assume, they can't fathom that something like that could happen, that the elections could be actually changed. But
of course,
it's
and
quite possible it's happening all over the world.
It is. I think you've seen the same clip I seen there maybe a week ago or so with the actual, when you're talking about the elections in the States. And I think it was one of the news channels was CNN, and none of us are fans of CNN, but to see it live in front of us, where it actually, the vote, it actually flipped in real time in front of us. Where I think was so many hundred votes or so basically Biden, Trump had, and all of a sudden then he went say minus 500, and Biden went up plus 500. Of it's unbelievable there in front of you. But if you weren't quick enough, you would have missed that, because it was done in live time to watch it. So that's just one evidence that's being caught. How many more are
like
not
I've
caught
seen
in live situations?
Because of the circle we're in, I've seen, and like by no means, like that everything that Trump does, I'm not a total Trump supporter. I just see that he's done a lot of things way better than anybody else, including, stopping wars and everything.
Yeah.
But like, you see cases where they're digging out lots of the votes, and they were blocking people from actually checking the votes being counted. There's hundreds of videos being circulating that people have cameras out, and you can see people scribbling them out and putting in a different name. Yeah. It's blatant that there was corruption done, and it's sad because just the fact that they were putting forward somebody that couldn't even string a sentence together, that was even strange in itself. But the fact that, like, I could not see anybody, about 3 people of the circle that I had, supporting him. And I mean, I never attack anybody. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and it doesn't work for everybody. It tends to, some people, they attack no matter what you write. But like, prior to that, when you were looking at, say, Obama or Hillary, you'd always see a split. But this time, there was no way. Like, the evidence was there that even when you were looking at when they were going around promoting, doing their speeches in the different states, you could see Biden had about 10 cars, all the exact same, and maybe 20 people, as opposed to Trump, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So there was no way, so it just didn't add up. And now you have Facebook, basically, if anybody says anything, Facebook is saying the election as if Biden has won. And
yeah. The media are so complicit in all this, like it's insanity. But they really are just complicit in everything that's going on at the moment, and as if Biden has everything that's sorted, and Trump just go away and stop being an arse basically, and just go away quietly and say no more about it, and just get on with your business and just go, because they can't control Trump to the level they can actually control Biden. Because Biden, it'll be a case of like Kamala Harris is right behind him. She'll be controlling a lot of what's going on there, obviously backed up by the Communist Chinese Party from China itself. They'll all be in cahoots with China, what's going on there, because he's his son, Hunter Biden, absolute crackhead, and all the stuff that he's been caught with as well. It's just unbelievable. With the Chinese situation, and then his dad as well, the same scenario. So with what's gone on him in connections over the years. So it's the Biden family are utterly corrupt Trump definitely won by a landslide, but obviously it's not showing up that way. Like we said with the car parks, you could fill it. You could half a car park, and any of Biden's rallies, that's all you get the most. And Trump then 50, 70, 100,000 plus, and all of a sudden then it goes that way. Biden wins, no problem. Yeah, please.
And even with the Sun, it was only shown on maybe one or two different channels. Nobody else reported it. So why would that not be front page news? Why would that not be blasted all over CNN? Because they're protecting their own.
Of course.
And you and me are in a circle that we have seen that. So it's not as if somebody made this up. That exists. It is true. The guy is sick and he's been abusing people. And yet the mainstream just says, oh, we'll keep quiet about that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way they are. And they really are complicit in everything that's going on. I mean, the media, we can always give out to the government saying they're doing wrong and they're carrying out these measures and what they're enforcing on people and all that. But the media, of all people, really and seriously need to be held accountable for the crimes against humanity they've done. They perpetrate all this. They could have stopped all this in the morning months and months ago if they wanted to, but they choose not to. They choose to basically have the one biased story
taken over,
true. Yeah, definitely.
Like RT in Ireland, BBC in the UK, and CNN, and I have yet to see one that's ethical. Like I know there's a few online ones like coming out. Like at one stage, the Guardian used to report a lot of stuff, because I remember even with the Smith Climb Beach, and they showed they got fined for 3.5 billion or 3.6 billion for backhanders and all. And even they've been infiltrated. It's like, obviously, whoever's got the money just buys more shares, and then they control what's being said, because they're not going to cut off the hand that feeds them.
Of course,
you know, and it's a shame. Like, so.
Yeah.
So, Chris, we always like to try to get a bit of positivity into the show instead of people. You know.
Yeah, everything been doom and gloom. Start a bit.
So I know we had a few wins this week anyway, didn't we? There was a bit of positivity.
There was, and there's quite a few positives coming out at the moment, but two in particular that stood out was the Denmark situation. I think it was, they gave days on end. I believe it was 9 days. I think they gave thousands of people and banging pots and pans in the streets and say, look, enough is enough. And what they're basically going against was the quarantine rules originally, but more so was what it against was the mandatory vaccines, that there was basically going to be rolled out and you'd have no choice and you just have to simply get them. So they the government basically they push back against the government, and the government basically fell in their arse and say, right, okay, we're going to have to give in to the people. So what I'd say to people kind of in a protest situation, most people say, oh, protests never worked, they're a waste of time, no point in getting together, just sit at home and don't do anything about it. Well, there's just one evidence situation alone, that if enough people, I've said this time and time again, you've said it in many podcasts as well, that a lot of this is if people keep uniting, if people stick together, keep uniting, they want us to be, because these people, at least that run the show in the background, they're quite united in the background, but they wanted all of us to be well divided and well apart. So if we keep uniting, we're going to get stuff like this, like people power on the ground, has worked. It's just worked in Denmark this week. So thankfully, all these people are jumping for joy over in Denmark. I've seen many videos online, men and women crying on the streets because they're not going to have their freedom again. They're not going to be getting forced vaccinations by some government that feels they've control over what goes in and what goes out of your body. I'm sorry, no. So that was definitely a good positive, that, and to show that people power does actually work, and it's worth your time coming out in the streets, because you know you're looking for the best thing ever is freedom in your life. You're challenging it to get it back, and if it goes, extremely hard to get it back. And moving on, even from Denmark itself, there was another positive thing was quite an interesting one, was the one in Portugal, where because Portuguese people were under quarantine, but actually went to a court situation, and people went about the PCR test that we've talked many times about as well, and how it's fraudulent in the sense of what it's not to test for what it's supposed to be testing for, and so on and so on. So it simply doesn't work. It's so incompetent, and it's such a high 90+ false positive rate that it has, and so on. Well, this week it got overturned in the court system. They actually, in the court system, they said, hang on a second, this PCR test is actually very inaccurate for what you say it's supposed to be doing, and you're actually what they're using worldwide, globally, to test on people worldwide, which is justifying a lot of the lockdowns as well. So they've actually said, well, hang on a second, if this isn't actually working, and it's completely inaccurate, well, what the hell are we doing keeping all our people in lockdown? So they said, no, everybody back out again. Fucking nobody is to be in lockdown. So if that's the case, going from that alone, why is that not all over the media? But like we just spoke with the video media, it's not going to be over the course because of the situation, because the agenda behind it, and all the people have vested interests in these vaccines and what they want worldwide, going into the global reset and other stuff as well. But so that's another positive sign. So that should be a stepping ground for every country to look at.
One, because especially because one, it's a European country, so they should be able to take the ruling on that and apply it across the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
So I know that not only is there a load of doctors coming out, but there's a lot of legal people as well coming out, because they know their kids are going to be, attacked with this as well. They're going to be forced the injections.
Of course.
So like hopefully the right people that speak the legal mumbo jumbo will actually be able to take that information and go to the courts and try to get a speedy decision and let this roll out, because it's positive. We've got 2 positives in Europe now at the moment, which is it's a win this week, definitely.
Definitely. And like we spoke last week as well, there's thousands of doctors, nurses, all these people across Europe and the world are saying, we're not getting the vaccine. This is just not on. We're not getting it. Why are we getting it? So they're professionals saying, we're not getting it. So to finish on that note as well, it's great positive. We'll see how the rest of these unravels for next week and what more positive stuff can come out with. But definitely a good move moving forward as to what Portugal and Denmark have done this week.
Exactly. And just a quick one as well, because I had this in my book, because I see, based on Germany and everything, like sometimes the police are attacking them. So they're just a few pointers, like when, the police are attacking, like the first thing is record everything, that you have your camera out, and the same with your pots and pans, because the media is not going to report this. And I keep saying that to the people that are actually standing at the protest and, just talking, the likes of David Icke and Sandy Adams, who we brought it into the show, that everybody picks up their phone, turns it around and puts it on live, because they can't actually stop that. That basically is getting the information out. So there's just a few pointers that before we finish up there, that when you are recording, because a lot of the time the police come up to you and they say, you can't record. And there's just a few things you can say.
Actually, I'd like to say one thing before I actually start that is actually, I just briefly came across it last night, was a lot of people online, actually, when you speak about the live situation, they said when they actually try to go live, a lot of the time now, especially if they're marches or protests, stuff like that, for some reason, it doesn't come off. And they've said, now I haven't found it myself, but maybe people can check it out, see if they have it on their phone or not. But actually, a lot of the live feeds on Facebook, they said Facebook bit by bit now are actually taking that away. So they're going to try and not allow it to have the live feed anymore. So yeah, just one thing to add in that. But
exactly. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I know for myself that the sound doesn't come out, and I was like, why is this happening? And I checked with a few other people, the exact same thing was happening. If that is the situation, just record it and put it up on every single social media that you've got. Just get it out there, put it on BitChute, and people, when they see something that's relevant, they will share it, and you'll see the thousands. So yeah, if you can do it live, it's definitely, and there's other, I mean, unfortunately, I know that Instagram is owned by Facebook, and they're now on WhatsApp. And just on a little one on the WhatsApp one, that's supposed to be encrypted. A friend of mine sent me a message during the week asking me, what was that book that you had recommended, and who was the author? And I said, it's Jim Rohn. And so I did. It wasn't a conversation. I just rated Jim Rohn. And then the next day, like, there's all advertisements coming into my Facebook on Jim Rohn. So that hadn't happened. So like, it's supposed to be encrypted and everything, and it's not. So just be aware of that. You think you're safe with WhatsApp as well. No, that ain't the case. And
plus, like you were saying, I don't use WhatsApp myself, but you were saying, of people that's restricted now to one. Apparently, you can't share like you used to be able before.
Exactly. Yeah. Because before, what I could do is because I mean, a lot of the time we get great information and we share it within our circle. So you just hit all the dots and forward it on, and that stopped as well. So I'd have to do it individually. So basically slowing you down from trying to get the message out fast, which is, another shame. Like,
yeah, unbelievable restrictions that they're putting upon us. But yeah, we see who's behind it. So no surprise.
Exactly. So just on if you have a police situation, you can say, look, I have a legal right to observe and document police activity. Cameras provide accountability. I am creating an objective reference for all involved. I am a reasonable distance, and I'm not interfering with your investigation, so that if you see them attack, because a lot of the times, especially like even in when there was the protests, was it Germany, Corbyn in the UK, where they, like, so you can record. Sometimes they're saying you're not Pierce Corbyn, you're not allowed to record well, so you can just say that, and you can just say, look, if you're doing nothing wrong, you've nothing to hide, just make them accountable. Like what I see is a lot of the time, they've got their visors and everything. I know that you can have mirrors, if you can show the mirrors, because they don't see what you're seeing. Having the mirrors can actually show it. The other thing is they're all blocked out and everything. I'm not encouraging violence or anything, but if they're pepper spraying you and damaging them, why not have a tin of red paint and just slap it across the face? They have to take off the mask, and then you see the person. When you see, like say in the UK with just the caps and everything, they all go around with the cap, take off the cap, throw away their cap, because they feel like they've got their police and they're protected under the police thing. They're not their individuals, make them feel individuals. And when you see somebody abusing it, get people together, because a lot of the time they beat the crap out of someone, they pepper spray, they throw smoke bombs, they're seen. You need to try to make them account that they're kicked out and their pension is gone, that they're personally responsible. And if you can get on the front line, like I remember in the Barcelona, going back a few years, because they were beating old people, throwing them down the stairs and everything. The firefighters were with them. They were with the protesters. So if you can get other people with you in the front line, get them to march up the front, it'll make a difference. So just all these little things, they're just little nuggets to try to help you a bit. Just protect yourself. Try to have cameras, if you're having the conversations, record as much as you can.
Yeah, no, great bit of advice. Simple, but it's effective to have these small little things, because when you, like, as much as people think a small little camera, a lot of people are using it more and more lately, which is great, obviously, to document what's going on. But you still find a few people, if a police come on you all of a sudden, a lot of people can, fear of the uniform they're wearing. So they completely freeze and they forget, I better take out my camera, or I better not, or people get in fear. So but I tell you, at the end of the day, it's in your interest to take it out and get everything video documented as much as you can, because these people can say anything in the background if it went to a court situation later on at all. So if you have your video evidence, as I said, the camera don't lie. So stick with it.
Exactly. And like there's actually, you can even buy buttons that have recording in them. So if you kind of fear holding up the camera, get a button and record it, because not only are you protecting yourself, you're protecting others around you as well. So if you do it and someone else does it, you've got each other's backs, because they are committing crime. They're just obliging what they're told to do. And the other thing is, if you can have a conversation, because to be honest, there is sometimes, a lot of them, they've got the mortgage, they're trying to keep a roof over their head. They're probably instructed, get out there or your job is gone. And maybe have the conversation, because sometimes you can see it. There's some of them very reasonable, and I know we can't tar them all with the same brush. You go out and you have the conversation and say, who's instructed you to do this? And obviously they'll say such an inspector or whatever. Try to get 100 people or whatever, go to that inspector. Who instructed you to do that? And before you know it, you go back to you're on about the dot connectors. It'll be the same people the whole time pulling the string. So we shouldn't be fighting the police and, them against us, because it's like wars. You've got, the Germans against the English. It was like, who funded the whole lot? Who caused the whole lot? There was a different level above. They didn't care people were beaten. And it's the exact same all over the world now. Everyone is attacking each other. Whether you're a Biden supporter or a Trump supporter, you're all attacking each other. And yet they're rolling out all these, injections and lockdowns and everything. Take control of yourself.
Exactly.
And, don't be hoping, if Biden gets in, he's going to sort out everything. If Trump gets in, he's going to sort out everything. Sort it out yourself. Stick together and sort it out yourself. Don't be relying on upper levels, because if you go back over the last 100 years, please tell me when you have seen somebody that has actually made a change at a higher level for humanity, because I struggle to see that.
Yeah, no, people ourselves have to make the change. We can't rely on, be it Trump or Biden or governments worldwide. You can't, because they're nefarious in so many ways, and they consistently lie for their own agendas. So we've got to take the power back ourselves, as only way moving forward. And like we just rehashed with Denmark, there's one fantastic example of it, and Portugal as well, and even like we spoke about last week, Italy as well. I know Italy are getting it very hard and all that still, but in parts of it, the police took off their headgear in solidarity with him. So there's positive, and they're all in Europe, and there's positive coming out day by day, and there's more police to getting together as well, units basically going against their own police, saying that this isn't, nothing's working, or something not right as well. And they're still in England at the moment, even talking to a girl yesterday, that they're still handing out more of these forms to basically police stations, putting the police on more notice, the chief constable in particular, and the rest of the staff on notice. And one of the girls yesterday actually went around to a few of them. They closed the door on her. They didn't want to accept the actual forms off them. They said no, because as soon as you touch them, you're liable. And they had the actual cameras out under common law and all the rest of the situation that it goes under as well for basically what they're doing to people. They're supposed to be standing with the people, you know. So but it's interesting to a few of them eventually got it all right. They actually a guy came out with a car and he didn't know what it was as such, and he basically had it and he said this, it's basically told her what it was, but he had it in his hand at the time, all recording camera. Too late then. So, and that's the second notice they're after being given in lots of stations and police stations around England at the moment as to what's going on. So on a positive note, that there's a lot of stuff brewing and bubbling in the background there that is going on. So I think I said that there is definitely positivity there. It seems like it's all doom and gloom still, but there is a lot of stuff, good stuff working in the background around Europe and worldwide that we need to take note of and not have our heads hanging all the time. Because I know I'm going around, even though we talk a lot of negative stuff, and because information is negative, what's really going on in the world, I'm going around positive day to day. I don't lose a night's sleep over it. I stay going, marching forward as positive as I can, and that's it. I don't let it affect my life. I get on as normal.
Absolutely, and I'm the same. And because I know, I mean, we both know a few people that actually it really affects them. And the thing is, can you make change? Can you get your message out? Can you help people if you're actually getting depressed because if you're researching in this? And just step back when you feel that if it's happening and it's affecting your emotions, you need to step away from it and start doing things, you know, go for an old walk in the nature and just, you know, watch the comedy and just be around positive people, and it'll change your
exactly.
mind.
It makes a massive difference. So, and but just to finish on one more thing before we actually finish up, is it came across, there's just a few notes, and I leave a link for people who are listening on the podcast and people that can actually look at the link themselves, but just to make people aware, I think it's a very important crucial point actually. It's the MHRA here in England, which stands for the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. And what they're actually saying is they urgently seek an AI, so an artificial software tool, to process the expected high volume of COVID-19 vaccine adverse drug reaction. So, and this is actually a clip out of the article themselves. This is not my opinion, this is what they're coming from it. It says further in the document, the MHRA describes an extreme urgency under regulation, and the regulation is 32 brackets 2 brackets C, related to the release of a COVID-19 vaccine, and says that the expected flood of COVID-19 vaccine adverse reactions will overwhelm its current legacy systems. So that's something to take note of, and I'll leave, as I say, a link for that as well. People can read in further that as they want. So I mean, they haven't even come out with a vaccine. We know madness to people and you get the vaccine, but they're already known that they're expecting, and they're almost a flood of COVID-19 adverse reactions already. So, and it goes into basically other details in it as well. But I mean, it's crazy to what's actually going on at the moment. They've already applied for this, and they're on the lookout for the best AI software tool that can basically help with all this system, because they're going to be overwhelmed with a flood of adverse effects, be it patients or people dying or serious side effects. So that's already expected before any so-called vaccine is
in
ready.
itself, because I have seen that in itself should scare you not to touch it. And like if you look, because we actually had a conversation earlier, it's like going into the betting shop. Your own immune system has a 99.998, I believe.
That's even if you believe this is real, the whole situation. Of recovery from this coronavirus.
You know, like the Pfizer one's got a 90% with God knows how many actually different adverse reactions that you're going to get. So why would you even do that? Like, and 90
and you've got the Moderna this week has this, they say have 94.6, so it's around 95% anyway, effective rate. So I mean, do you pick the 90 plus from Pfizer, or do you pick the 95 from Moderna, or just say, hang on a second, if you don't get any of these vaccines at all, these toxic shit that's in these vaccines that you don't actually need for your immune system, I have a 99.9% or so chance of not dying or being affected with this so-called COVID-19 anyway. So I'll just roll on. Why do I need to get that?
And the other thing is, and this is really important, is like you've been told it's 90 and 95. There is it 70 or 90 years with the influenza, and there's a 40%. So now in 6 months, 7 months, they've been able to create something that can actually. So don't believe it. Just don't believe it. Don't get it.
No.
I mean, I will not be getting it, and hopefully, like what's happened in Portugal can get rolled out fast, not only in Europe, because we care about people all over the world, that they'll start doing it everywhere. Let's hope next week we'll come back with more positive news, because I think people need a bit of an uplift at times, to show
Definitely.
that the good guys get a few wins every now and again.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll leave it at that so for this week.
Listen, Chris, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, Roy, again, and we'll speak to you next week.
So you'll actually find both of us on Facebook as well, because we both post different things and you get different videos. So I'm Awakening Podcast, and I believe yours is Mindwars. Yeah, Facebook, it's Mindwars.
Mindwars, yeah. You should come across the logo.
Chris's website is mindwars.uk. Mine is awakeningpodcast.org. We're both on BitChute. I'm on YouTube.
For now,
Maybe
anyway.
next week he'll get back. We don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You'll find us anyway. So listen, we need you to share the message. We need you to share the podcast. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star review. It all helps. And until next week, take care.
See you then.